I feel like so many of us, especially if we were raised to be good kids and obedient kids, really suppressed our emotions, and we struggled to really feel the emotions that were kind of shameful or looked down on or made to be wrong growing up. So for me, feeling vulnerable, like asking for help, feeling weak, like I can't do it, like I want to say no, feeling happy and feeling a sense of pleasure and ease, these are emotions that, even though they're just emotions on a spectrum, they're actually more uncomfortable to feel. In fact, the familiarity scale for me is I feel familiar with struggle, I feel familiar with working hard, complaining, self-comparison, with not being enough, self-judgment. Like, these are the familiar emotions, and even though they don't serve me, they are familiar, so I will revert back to them as often as I can, especially if I am not thinking or not being mindful. So in order for me to really step into like a new normal where I have a healthy balance, where I'm able to enjoy hard work and ease and flow and have these two polarities be my experience in life, I need to let myself expand by being in the uncomfortable state of like sitting in that emotion. Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Nicole, a life and business coach for high functioning women. I'm a self-proclaimed foodie, content creator, educator, and your new abundance bestie. In my world, we talk about all things to do with elevating your life. I post weekly videos helping the everyday woman embody her highest self, create inner wealth, master her mindset, unlock her femininity, and be an absolute boss in life. I create resources, trainings, and host experiences online and in person in order to help you reconnect to your true self. Not the one you think you need to be, but the you that you were born to be. So you can reclaim your power and amplify your voice to lead, love, and create as a woman. If you like my vibe and you want a little bit more abundance in your life, hit subscribe to be notified whenever I drop a new episode, and be sure to check out the free resources in the description below. Hello my loves, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Nicole, your life and business coach and your abundance bestie, and today I wanted to do a little heart to heart and share with you all my resolutions and intentions for 2024. Now, I honestly love doing these sit downs because it's a way for me to also articulate what I am here to set goals towards and what I'm here to work towards in the new year, but also it's a way for me to really feel into what I am intending for and to be accountable for them. Because what better way to be accountable than to share what your goals and resolutions are, which is actually something that I highly recommend, because it is actually a way that allows your mind and your emotions to work together to help you to actually stick to your resolutions. I go further into how to set resolutions that you won't give up on in a separate video in the playlist Visioneering, so you can check that video out too after this one. I'll link it in the description below. But today I really just wanted to share with you guys my personal intentions for 2024. And a lot of them are actually to do with myself and my personal growth. Because if you asked me over a year ago, I would have probably given you a goal or resolutions that were to do with my business or to do with my career, finances, health goals, which are all very, very important for me. And don't get me wrong, I do have goals for those areas of my life. However, I've really been thinking about what resolution actually means. And in my previous video where I talked to you about how to set resolutions that you won't give up on, I shared about how the word resolution actually stems from the word resolute, which is a quality, it's a state of being in that you are unwaveringly committed to what you say you will do. And what I have learned from the past years of coaching women and helping people grow as individuals and achieve their goals is that at the end of the day, the things that we want on the outside, the tangible metrics, the physical results, are really just byproducts of a state of being. When we create New Year's resolutions where they're just action focused or goal oriented, but they aren't really connected to our identity, and there's no responsibility or accountability to think about our thoughts, think about how we feel, think about how we behave, then we're really just creating an external goal that we're not really going to be able to move the needle on. Or we might get to a certain degree with motivation and willpower, but when push comes to shove, breaking out of the habits that keep you in your old results is going to be really hard, because what breaks the habit and what keeps you actually excelling or surpassing the resistance that will inevitably come up during a transformation process is the identity shifting. And so my personal resolutions this year, I have decided to actually make them to do with my internal state, because I know that as long as I am internally secure and I have a strong state of being that aligns with my highest self and my highest values, then any outcome that I wish to create, any result or goal that I'm working towards, will inevitably come from that identity. So my principles, my paradigms, my personal values in life are guiding my decisions, and they're leading me towards excelling in the goals that I set, because my highest resolution is to actually act in alignment to the identity of my highest self. So what I would encourage you to do before I share mine is to really look at your resolutions list if you've already made it, and ask yourself, what is the identity, what is the characteristic, what are the quality of the thoughts, the feelings, the actions of a person who has this result already, and act from that place. Create unwavering commitment. Again, that's what resolute means. To be resolute, that is the identity you need to work at. And that identity will inevitably create a consistency in the actions that will create the end result. This is something I actually go more thoroughly into in my mini course called Becoming Unapologetic as Your Own Damn Self. You can actually download it and sign up for it. It's totally free. It's a 6-part mini course that I filmed for anyone out there who is wanting to create a transformation from the inside out, particularly if you're someone who's struggled to take up space in the world, to communicate boundaries, to express yourself confidently, and to really just own the level of change and transformation that you want, but have been feeling stuck and unsure about where to begin and why you keep finding yourself in the same loops, even though you really want to break out of them. So you can sign up for that and get that right away in the description below. So let's get into it. Here are my 5 intentions and resolutions for 2024. Number 1, I am releasing self-judgment. I realized recently that I have this thing where I tend to just beat myself up over certain things that I don't make progress in as quickly as others. And we all have those areas in our life. For me, it's like my health journey, like my weight loss journey and body goals, and my finances. These are the 2 areas that I feel like I'll progress comfortably and consistently in every other area of life, but these 2 I feel like I have the hardest cycles in. And surprise, surprise, they're actually connected, because that same mentality that drives my scarcity thinking when it comes to money is the same mentality that drives my overeating behaviors or my binging and all these other things that kind of come up for me in the health aspect of my life. And this is what's really interesting, because if you look at the life wheel is actually a tool that you can use to measure and quantify how you would rate your life, and then you can see the overall patterns of where you are skewing to be maybe less fulfilled, less satisfied, versus areas where you do feel fulfilled and satisfied. And this is actually a tool that I use in my program Embody, which you can get access to if you come into my free community called I Am Her Collective. I will also link that in the description below. You can access all of these resources and more in that community. But this tool, right, if I were to reflect on what areas I would rate the extreme lowest, it would be these areas that I just shared with you. And I think that when I can see the trend that these areas are quite low, I can also deduce or assume that there is an identity crisis somewhere in there. There is a mismatch or a misalignment in the way that I am showing up as my highest self in that area of life. Because the only reason why the other areas of my life are thriving or growing, or I'm not feeling that sort of discontentment or helplessness or plateau in those areas, is because I am actually showing up as the most aligned, highest version of me. And the thing is, showing up as the highest version of yourself doesn't mean that things are always going to go smoothly, because we live in a world that has polarity and there are ups and downs, and that's life. But it's that when you show up in confidence and your authentic power as your highest self, those areas of life don't create that kind of stuck, sinking, overwhelmed, discouraged feeling. Instead, you look at it through a different lens. And that's how I know that in that area, I am creating a lot of self-judgment for myself. So that's why I am choosing to release self-judgment, because what I have learned is that anytime you are in a plateau in any area of your life, it's because you are putting conditions and limits on yourself. You are expecting yourself to be, act, or look like, or feel anything other than how you are currently feeling. There's a lack of self-acceptance and acknowledgement of where you currently are at, and there's an expectation that you're either comparing yourself to or you're beating yourself up for. And it's actually conditionality, and that's the opposite of unconditional. And if you look at the highest frequency, the highest vibration, the most abundant place to operate from, and the place that you need to act out of, especially if you want to create change, is the state of love. Any of the areas that you are thriving in right now, if you look back, I will guarantee you that it's because you have released the judgment of where you think you need to be, and you have just practiced love, unconditional love. No limits, no conditions, just show up as you are in that space, accept things for what they are, don't make them mean anything, and you're able to thrive in that area. This is where the self-judgment and the awareness of where you are self-judging is so important. And replacing that with compassion and unconditional love, noticing where you are, maybe consciously or unconsciously placing limits on yourself, is going to serve you. So that is for me a huge area, because there are so many times that I feel like I can praise myself and self-celebrate and like, woo, go me, in, you know, the areas that I consistently thrive at. But there are certain areas that I always feel like I'm just so much more mean and harsh on myself. And those are the areas that, surprise, surprise, are the things that maybe your parents had a lot of say over, or perhaps a lot of people have given their opinion over, or areas that you just feel a lot of insecurity around. So we have to learn to kind of override those external inputs and learn to love from within, and let that love drive us towards behavioral change or habitual change, rather than driving ourselves to change, like motivating ourselves from a place of punishment and pain and fear, which is what so many of us are used to doing in order to motivate us. So how much more powerful could it be if you were operating to create change in those areas of your life, but from a place of self-love and complete self-acceptance, rather than self-judgment, self-hatred, and motivation out of feeling insufficiency, not good enough, and comparison. Okay, my second resolution is understanding more of the ego and the learned self. So I've been doing a lot of research and personal reading on just the ego, and understanding like what is the psychological concept of the ego and where does it trip us up, and also the ego on the spiritual sense. I've been reading a lot of Eckhart Tolle. I never know how to pronounce his last name, but reading his books has really enlightened me to understand where I am. Myself is just the awareness, and the ego is the learned self. It's the constructed self. And there's so much more that I could talk about on this. I'll probably do an entire series on the ego, but really for me, the personal reason why I want to set this resolution is because for so long I have just operated out of my ego, out of my thinking brain, and not really learned how to distance myself from my thoughts. You know, there's that saying, I think, therefore I am, and it is not 100% true. At the time, it was the biggest enlightening truth, but now we know that that is not the case, because if you were just your thoughts, you would not even know that you were having thoughts. You would just be them. And so the fact that we can evaluate our thoughts and have that metacognition, I believe it's called, it's empowering to realize that we can think about what we're thinking about, because that is evidence that we are actually very capable of creating change and transformation from the inside out, that we don't need to be victim to what we think or habitually feel. Those are things that we have the power to change, even if our circumstances are extremely hard, even if we feel like there's no hope. We always have control over our thoughts, and our thoughts dictate our feelings and our actions, and therefore our results. So for me, learning more about the ego in 2024 is really a personal growth goal. It's going to help me not make such a big deal out of things that my brain offers me, like insecurities and thoughts of comparison. It's going to help me be a better business owner, a better coach, a better partner, simply because I am not living in a reactive way anymore. Because when we're living from ego, we're basically trying to make our way in the world based on our own understanding. We are in this hyper control mode because the ego loves control. The ego is a construct. And when we are purely in our ego, we can often just be reactive and making things mean things that aren't really true, because the ego wants to understand. It wants to box things into categories so we can feel that sense of ownership and control. And the opposite of that is actually releasing control. And I find that for me, I tend to label situations as good or bad, or I can look at a reality and just assume a certain thing, like a client didn't respond to me on time. Oh no, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Or I'm not making much money this month, therefore I'm a failure. And I'm so in my stories, my conditioned beliefs about what money means, what X reality means, what this circumstance means, what people might be saying, that I kind of get lost in this overthinking space. And again, the opposite of that is moving from the head to the body, the head to the heart, from the masculine brain to the feminine brain, and learning to have that balance. So I am really still working through that understanding of that balance in terms of masculine, feminine, hence why I'm doing a lot of personal learning and sharing a lot with you guys on my TikTok, on my podcast, talking more about this, as well as in my private community. We're having so many more discussions about that masculine and feminine polarity and how to operate in a healthy way between them. That is my second intention, and I am super excited to learn so much more, because I feel like knowledge is liberation, in the sense that the more the awareness you have about a certain thing, the more that you can really gauge where you are and understand things, rather than make things good or bad, or make them right or wrong. And I think that that is a way to be neutral. It's a way to create a sense of acceptance for what is happening in life without deducing it to it's either good or bad, or this or that, black or white. It's like when you travel more often, or when you have a huge range of friends, you learn to be more accepting, you learn to be more welcoming, you learn more social and likable person, simply because you just have this understanding that no one has to be the same, and it's not your job to make everybody the same. So you sort of start letting people be who they are and accepting them as they are, especially with the more diversity that you expose yourself to. Number 3, my third intention and resolution is to expand my limits. In 2023, I really let myself play with so many different new activities that I'd never done before. I traveled for a long period of time. I went nomadic. I started playing badminton. I started doing dance classes. I got on rollerblades again. I've done so many fun new things, and it really showed me just how exciting life can be again. And I think being in that state of childlike wonder is what we need an infusion of so much more than we think. And for me, I've really enjoyed expanding my limits, because every time I do something new or fresh and challenging, I actually learn more about myself, and I learn more about the world. And a part of this is also being in the spaces of other people who are doing their thing and just observing with awe and wonder. Like watching an athlete or supporting someone whose sport you have never ever been interested in, understanding their lifestyle, understand why they do what they do, what their routines are like, their mentality. I think it's just so great, because it connects us to our potential as human beings, and it allows us to develop a healthy respect for people who are different to us. I feel like for me, expanding myself in terms of activities is going to continue in 2024. So I'll probably be doing more stuff that makes me uncomfortable, trying activities I've always wanted to try but being afraid to, those kind of things. But also expanding myself means allowing myself to feel more of the emotions that I don't let myself feel. I feel like so many of us, especially if we were raised to be good kids and obedient kids, really suppressed our emotions, and we struggled to really feel the emotions that were kind of shameful or looked down on or made to be wrong growing up. So for me, feeling vulnerable, like asking for help, feeling weak, like I can't do it, like I want to say no, feeling happy and feeling a sense of pleasure and ease, these are emotions that, even though they're just emotions on a spectrum, they're actually more uncomfortable to feel. In fact, the familiarity scale for me is I feel familiar with struggle, I feel familiar with working hard, complaining, self-comparison, with not being enough, self-judgment. Like, these are the familiar emotions, and even though they don't serve me, they are familiar, so I will revert back to them as often as I can, especially if I am not thinking or not being mindful. So in order for me to really step into like a new normal where I have a healthy balance, where I'm able to enjoy hard work and ease and flow and have these two polarities be my experience in life, I need to let myself expand by being in the uncomfortable state of like sitting in that emotion. So if I feel like I need to work hard, let myself do that. But also if I feel like I need to relax and rest a little bit, to honor that as well, and to recognize that they work together and they're kind of cyclical as well. So that for me is going to be a continual journey that I will have in 2024. Now, before I go into the final two, I just want to invite you once again to join me in my collective community called I Am Her. It's a Discord community where you can actually sign up and access all the free resources that I give to my clients and any kind of private podcast episodes, anything that I personally find super helpful for this journey of embodiment, abundance, and becoming your highest self, particularly if you are someone who is hardworking, a woman who is quite in your hustle energy and wants to really learn to balance that flow. That's the community that you want to be a part of. Special bonus is that every month we're going to be jumping on a live call together and we're going to be doing some soulful conversations, some free coaching, and I'm going to be inviting my expert friends from different niches and industries to coach you and to provide value for you. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but there are like kids screaming outside my window and it is not fun to my ears. Anyways, point number 4, my fourth resolution for 2024 is to practice a healthy balance of feminine and masculine. So it kind of goes off the previous point, but really my emphasis here is more around the aspect of receiving and giving. For me, I always feel like I am in this journey of learning to be more abundant in my way of thinking. And part of that has really had to look like a lot of money liberation, which is why all of last year was about liberating myself from the money hustle, the struggle stories, the scarcity mindset. And I did a bunch of resources, trainings, workshops that actually allowed me to process through what I was feeling and to allow other people like yourselves to go through the same journey. And it's gotten so much good feedback and it's changed so many people's lives and perspectives on money and abundance. And I couldn't be more grateful that that's the path that life took me on, because I now see that the only way to really unlock true abundance, which has nothing to do with money, is to work through the layer of money, which is what we make responsible for our abundance. In reality, so many of us have like the attachment to money to be what creates our happiness, joy, peace, security, which is fair and understandable because we do live in a world that is heavily dependent on the exchange of money. However, learning to be liberated from the money is actually a whole different experience where you can interact with money every day, whether you have lots or little. You can work for it, you can build a business, and yet your identity, your security is not hanging on it. It is not dependent on it. So whether it goes up or down, whether you have lots or little, whether you're giving or receiving, you're not feeling any more valuable or less valuable. Your worthiness is not tied to your material wealth. And that to me is liberation. How like freaking miserable is it to hang your personal identity and worth on a resource that is literally exchangeable? Like, no, your identity is valuable, you are valuable, your worth stands regardless of what you own and what you make. This is huge. And if you are someone who wants to learn more about money liberation and you want to do like the 3-part workshop that I did, it's actually free as well, and you can sign up for it in the details below. It is a huge workshop. It is powerful. It has literally changed so many people's lives, and I highly recommend it if you resonate with my money journey. So for me, the feminine masculine balance is really about learning to give more and to give in a healthy way, because that's masculine. In that masculine and feminine, not gendered, but energy types, I tend to overgive and I overcommit sometimes to my projects, to my business, to other people, to I don't know, I just get a bit rigid because that's the hustle identity that I was raised to have. So a healthy giving means like allowing myself to give where I have energy to, and then in the feminine way to balance that with learning to receive, because maybe there are things that the universe, God, the higher self wants to give me that I'm just not open to receiving because I think I need to create the result myself. And I've seen this work so beautifully in the last like 12 months of 2023 because I have allowed myself to be in that balance of like just ebbing and flowing. And this has looked like releasing my massive to-do list. It has looked like not micro-scheduling my day, allowing myself to go out and be in my flow zones and in spaces that light me up, saying yes to less things, expanding the timelines and deadlines that I usually would put and allowing more space between them, having more space in my day. I've allowed more of this because it's given me opportunities to be more creative, to replenish my energy, to receive brilliant ideas and solutions that I otherwise wouldn't have if I was just still in that go, go, go energy. So I feel like the receiving part of it does come with space, and I talk about this a lot in my podcast, but for me, next year, the feminine masculine balance is really where I want to play with the tangible components of that. So allowing myself to receive more opportunities to collaborate with people, to receive help and support in my business projects, to not feel like I need to do it on my own or to do it in the timeline that I initially came up with, and to just allow more of that, like, you know, support that wants to come through. Because when you've been operating in your masculine for so long, it can feel so freaking hard to let go and to trust that the good things are coming, to trust that you don't have to be the one to control it. So for me, I'm still working through that, and that is going to continue to be my work in 2024. And the fifth and final thing that I am setting an intention for in 2024 is vulnerability. For me, I have had a hard time being vulnerable to anybody other than my partner and myself. I realized in 2023, as I started to make new friendships and rekindle old ones, that in order for me to have depth in my friendships, I needed to be vulnerable. I never realized how much I restricted myself from truly being vulnerable until I reflected on why some of my friendships weren't as deep as I wanted them to. I would secretly admire or envy other people's friendships where they kind of had that ride or die story where they've been through the depths of the depths, the worst moments, and the highs of the highs. When I reflect on my high school journey, when I was really going through a lot of chaos in my family life, home life was falling apart, I never really opened up to anybody because I didn't think people would understand, and I kind of felt a little shameful about it. I felt like there was just no way for me to share even if I wanted to because I didn't feel like I was going to get support. So I learned from that point on in my life to literally internalize my problems, and as an adult I eventually became that person who would only share after the struggle had happened and after I'd figured it out. And I took pride in that. Actually, I believed that I didn't need many people around, and that was a great quality, which maybe it is, and I know for so many of you it's something that you take pride in too, to be able to be self-sufficient and independent. But there is such a thing as hyper independent, where it causes you to distance yourself when you are going through something and to experience built up resentment for friendships that could otherwise be so much deeper, and friends who could actually be there and want to be there to support you, but you're not giving them a chance to. And I remember always having this struggle story of like, I never have any deep friendships, my friends never ask me how I am, but then I realized that it's because I never give them a chance to ask me how I am. Or if they did ask me how I am, I never actually told them the 100% truth. I just told them a fraction of it. So how could I sit there and expect them to understand or to support me in a real way that was actually going to help me if I never allowed myself to be helped? So if you're someone like this, and I get it, it's hard to be vulnerable, I invite you to do the same. To let yourself just pick a relationship, a friend, even if it's someone who you haven't known for a long time, and explore that vulnerability with them. A hard conversation often leads to really great growth. It leads to depth. And sometimes when you get to this level of vulnerability, it's gonna feel like you are opening up old wounds that just feel so freaking uncomfortable. And that's okay. That's normal. Look, you don't have to go and broadcast everything to everybody. You don't need to tell a billion people every time you're going through something. I get it. It's actually hard to ask for help, especially if you have just been hyper independent your whole life. But you are allowed to experience the joy and the gift of friendships. This is my realization lately. We all have friends that are there for proximity, like high school friends or primary school friends or workmates. And some of them end up being great friends. But what happens when you move countries, when you move neighborhoods, or when you move schools? Well, some of your closest friends fall away. Like, you never hear from them again. And you can't sit there and blame them, because really the depth of your friendship was just about about proximity. As much as you wanted to believe it was more, the root and the substance of that friendship was heavily dependent on the proximity, which isn't a bad thing. We are like communal beings. But that's why it takes work to maintain adult friendships, especially when life happens. And I think that's where we need to step in and take responsibility for the fact that nobody owes us anything. If we want something from someone, if we want a certain type of relationship or a quality of depth in our friendships, then we need to give that. We need to communicate that we want it. And this is where half the drama can literally go out the window, because then you're not left to assume that the person will do something. You're just there communicating it. Or you can teach them how to support you by saying, hey, my love language is quality time, so I would love to spend more time with you as a friend because it would help me get to know you. Taking the time to understand how they love and how they want to be supported, what their goals are, and how to call them out and how they want to be called out. So this to me is the next part of the journey in 2024, because I definitely feel like for a while there I was kind of that solo lone wolf who was trying to do everything on her own. Her friends were kind of just like this convenient category, and yes, I had some good friends and I still do, just like here and there, but I feel like the depth of those friendships are still out of like that proximity and the familiarity. It's not really got that depth to it, and this is me just being really vulnerable. And I've had the hard conversations I was telling you about with these friends, and it was really challenging at the time to express that, but now that it's been had, it's so great. I really feel like I can open my heart up. And I also want to acknowledge that if you've been burned by other friendships before, which I know so many of us have, it can really be hard to trust again and to open yourself back up again, because those wounds of the past are going to come up and you're going to feel like freaking everybody's out to get you and you can't trust people again. But remember that everybody's got the same needs. We all want good friends. We all have our wounds. We all have our stories. And if you don't make yourself out to be, I'm the only one who's suffered and had a hard time, it allows you to just see people for what they are and who they are in this moment. It is just hurting you to hold on to what you think people should be, or the pain of the past of what other people did to you. Let people cross your path as they are right now. Meet friends today and see them as people who could potentially be your lifetime friends. Don't judge them because they're not who your usual circle is, or you didn't know them for 20 years. Don't base a friendship on any expectation. Just accept it, embrace it, enjoy it here and now, and let it develop into what it can be in its own organic way. Your only responsibility is to show up authentically and to be vulnerable. And that's what's beautiful about a friendship. A friendship is like, they're not your partner. They're not married to you. There's no blood tie. There's no familial obligation. There's zero obligation whatsoever. And this is what true friendship, I believe, is all about. And that's what makes it so magical and special. There is no relationship like it because there is no obligation. There is literally no commitment holding you to each other, other than genuine care and genuine love. And there is that balance of giving and receiving, and being able to genuinely care about someone without needing to have an obligation to them. And that to me is what makes vulnerability the glue that allows us to have authentic and real friendships that bless us and gift us the experience of life that we are deserving to have as humans. And remember, you don't need a billion friends, you only need a handful of good ones. Alright, my loves, I hope you enjoyed this episode where I shared with you my 2024 intentions and resolutions. I hope this inspired you to set more intentional resolutions and to really think about why you want what you want. I'll catch you on my next episode.
I want to take your abundance to another level. I want to help you. I'm a life and business coach for women who want to step into their next level by activating wealth from the inside out. To help you take your first step to unlocking true abundance and your aligned potential, I'm giving you free resources, workshops, and masterclasses that you can access on demand right now. Check out www.nicoleconception.co/free-resources to get your hands on it. For more videos like this, check out the other playlists and series I have on this channel, and don't forget to hit subscribe to be notified whenever I drop a new video. And if you're more of the podcast type, check out Freedom in Flow, where I dive even deeper into the concepts that will help you create less hustle and more flow, abundance, and alignment in your life and business. Now, if you're a reader, you'll want to subscribe to my email list for unfiltered, honest, and most importantly, applicable life upgrades. Now, don't be a stranger. Connect with me on Instagram and TikTok and send me a message. I love getting to know you and your story. It's why I do this. Okay, my lovely, that's all for now. I'll see you soon. Signing off, Nicole.